Right, first off, hello everyone, it's Ellen Horses here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, in terms of addressing the previous video, you all know that Ira was sick and had to be rushed to hospital. This happened a few weeks ago now, and it hit my family hard, and so as not to swerve around it and sort of, to say it bluntly, Ira's gone. She was put to sleep Wednesday a few weeks ago. So it's been a few weeks now, and I didn't want to talk about it on camera because, in all honesty, I didn't want to burst into tears. And it's already something that I don't really want to talk about, but I feel like it is fair to let you guys all know, especially the ones and the people who have been so kind and have sent messages on my Instagram and commented on the video and all my community posts on hoping that Ira gets better. So that really was really kind of everyone, and just so I felt like this video should be the next video on my channel and not divert it to another video and then there end up being a blank section where you don't know what's happened and how just Ira's not there. So in short, I mentioned previously that Ira had a colic. She was then rushed to a hospital because just it wasn't the regular type of colic, it turned out to be a blockage, etc. And it just seemed that like everything was going bad. There was this not working, that not working, and I said in the previous video how she had to have an operation, and the thing was that she survived that. They did 2 invasive cuts, one in her bowel and one in her intestine, and they tried to flush it all out and clean it out. And after that, she was actually rather good, and my parents went to visit her like after school, or like when I was in school, and so I actually didn't see her. I don't think I saw her after her operation, and I'm already starting to cry. But she survived the operation, but she had problems getting up, and she sort of had different built-up problems after the operation. So she had chances of getting laminitis, and there was just too many things wrong. And in short, she started to have the beginnings of laminitis, and they fixed that. So this had all happened in her large intestine, and so that was that operation then was actually successful. But she then had relapse in her small intestine and had liquid building up, and they couldn't figure out what the problem was, and so she was actually then having problems in that. And then on the Wednesday after school, I was supposed to go and visit her just as the general let's go see her, see if she'll be all right. And in the car drive, my parents explained to me what the actual situation was, and that my parents had received a call from the hospital. So the hospital had then explained to us that because of Ira's relapse in her small intestine, they had given her a medication to try and get this intestine working again, because they weren't sure if it was that the intestine could be dead, that it had fallen asleep because of the operation previously on the large one, and that it had been under sedation for too long and not being used because Ira had been on starvation, before, like she was on starvation after the operation to like just so she could recover before she would start to eat. And she didn't react well to the medication, and so they actually had 3 things that they could do there, and it was to do nothing, that she would have to pull through and sort this thing out with her small intestine alone without medication. 2, they would put her to sleep then and there. Or 3, they would do an operation to see what the problem was, and possibly do a massage with warm water and massage her small intestine to get the circulation going again, to see if there was a chance on getting it working again. The problem was that if they then operated and found that her small intestine had become necrotic, meaning dead, or that it was sticking to itself, which is another possibility, or that the outside of the small intestine had become sticky and goopy and was just sticking to itself, which is really bad because the small intestine needs to be able to move to continue circulation of the food and stuff. Then they would have to let her go and put her to sleep there. Then the good news was that the problem from the Monday was all good. Her blood work was good, so there was no chance of laminitis anymore, and that her large intestine had started working again, and that she had done an absolutely ginormous poop, which is what they needed. So the actual main problem for the reason that Ira went to the hospital was good. She had recovered. But then, so they had just, when my parents collected me from school, they had just, so the vets had just put Ira under anesthesia, and so they were waiting for her to fall asleep before they started operation. So we would arrive just as they had begun or as they were doing the operation. And when we arrived, they showed us, they let us go in. My dad went in alone first, and they had a look, and my dad came out, and I didn't really want to hear, and I wanted to hear it for myself and actually see it. And of course I want to be a vet when I'm older, so I was very interested in what was actually happening. And this might be a trigger warning for some people depending on whether you're squeamish, so you might want to skip forward a bit. But I went forward, and they showed me they had cut into Ira's stomach. She was hanging upside down, which is how they do an operation for something like that, because otherwise they can't access it. And they showed me what the problem was, and they couldn't help her because her part of her intestine, I think, was dead, and also that it had this sort of sticky bit and this chewing gum sort of texture on the outside of different parts of it. So the vet showed me what her small intestine was meant to look like, and there were small bits of it, and they had removed, like, de-stuck the sticky intestine from each other. But the problem was that it was manually done, and it would just stick back together again. And there was no way they could do anything because it would just have come back. And also there is a complete decoloration of the small intestine, of it being one section which it was meant to be like a pale pink and very slippery, and then the others it was sort of, it had a yellowish coloration, and it almost looked like some sort of buttery, oily sort of paste or toothpaste, just sort of yellowy on the outside of her intestine, and it was sticking together, and just they had to put her to sleep. So they let us say goodbye to her while she was still asleep, and then they then just added more anesthesia, meaning they just overdosed it, and so then it would just sort of slow her heart rate and she would just die in her sleep. And I think the bit that hurt the most was that she had got better from the initial problem, and that it was actually the post-operation issue that sort of made her die. And then we said goodbye to her, and just she was very cold, like her fur, it was like Ira was there but also not. And I stayed in there watching them do everything, and my dad and my mum were outside like heartbroken. And so I was still in the operation room when it flatlined, and so I was pretty much there the whole time. And then I watched them undo everything and remove her. And so we've got her mane, about 2 huge chunks of plaited mane, and about half of her tail with us. They gave it to us after I'd asked for it. And we have sent off pieces of them to get them made into a bracelet for a family. So yeah, I didn't really want to post a video of me crying on YouTube, but I don't think I would have been able to discuss this and talk about it and inform you guys without crying. But yeah, that's pretty much what happened. But yeah, so I guess this is the explanation to what's happened. So of course she will no longer be on this channel anymore. So yeah, thank you for all the kind messages, and get better soon to her. But just, it wasn't enough. So yeah. starvation still.